Welcome to the My Tech Toolbelt podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Brenda. And this is a podcast where we highlight educators who innovate, engage, and inspire through the use of technology. Welcome today to episode 34 of the My Tech Toolbelt podcast. We're so excited. Just to recap a bit, so Shannon and I have been pretty busy lately, and so we haven't been able to get together lately, but we were able to get together for a Bold 2019 at Sage Creek High School in beautiful Carlsbad, California, and it was a gorgeous weekend, and it was all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and it was a fantastic event put on by Q.
Yeah, they had over 400 attendees, I think, for the weekend. And as John Crippo likes to call everybody, they were like Saturday and Sunday teachers, weekend teachers, people who really wanted to be there, excited about learning. It was a really, I like to think of it as kind of a low-key, really super fun event. If you want to go to something that's a Q event and you really want to focus, BOLD stands for Blended and Online Lesson Design. So it really is an event that's focused around helping you think about designing your lessons using digital tools. And it focuses on the Madeline Hunter, kind of her methodology and her framework. That's really where everyone was coming from. And it's kind of a different layout as far as a conference goes. So if you're used to something that's like very formal, very I don't want to say structured, but very like there's, 15 workshops at this time slot and then on this time slot and on this time slot. It's a little different than that. They really have it laid out to where there's like really short 30-minute sessions and then what they call an after party, which in typical John Crippo style comes with its own disco ball in every session. And that is the time where you can like kind of dig deep, stay and ask questions of the presenter, and kind of get to work on a lesson design that you might want to work on based on whatever you just heard in that session. And there's other pieces too. There's featured speakers and
panels.
Yeah, you went to a panel. And then the classroom makeovers are always a big hit. There's typically somewhere in the $70,000 range of kind of renovations or different investments that go into a classroom or two. In this case, there were two. And those were really fun to see as well.
Mm-hmm. So what I found very interesting was those sessions that had the after party. I could see how you could turn that into just a general lesson for your classroom. I could see now how people talk about wanting to go through the lesson very quickly and then help the people who need the help. But if they don't need help and they can just run with it, then that's what they can do as well. So you have students or adults, as in our case, that if you didn't need the extra help, you could just leave after the 30-minute session. But if you wanted to dive deeper, if you want more information, you just stuck around and you could talk to them individually, or you could like work on it as a group. And I thought it was just really well done.
I think so too. I think there were some that I stayed for the after party and there were others that I didn't, but agreed. I think it's an interesting concept if you can make the connection to your own classroom. I agree.
Right. Mm-hmm. The only one that I had, which in all honesty was not one of these sessions, but I sort of was in that mode of these type of sessions. So I had gone to a social studies panel, and I don't know if it was just their timing, but it was a great session with Dr. Laura Spencer and Kimberly Vogue. But unfortunately, at the end of the 30-minute session, they had to leave to go to a different session. So while we had everybody that was sitting in the classroom, contributing, and we were talking about all kinds of things, and then all of a sudden they said, "Okay, sorry, we got to go to our next session." So, but it was never meant. It wasn't advertised as as that after party, 30-minute after party. So it's not like they ran out on us. It was just a different type of session. It was a panel instead. So in that way, we didn't get to ask any questions. I mean, we could have, but I guess we didn't realize that they were going to be leaving so quickly. Mm-hmm. So, but it was a great while it lasted. So
Dr. Laura Spencer is a super amazing person. I'm sure Kimberly is as well. I bet that was a great panel.
It was.
That is a shame though, that you didn't get the opportunity to spend some time with them, because last year at Q Bold, I did attend one of Dr. Spencer's sessions with an after party, and it was just phenomenal.
I bet.
And so I had a good time with her. So what sessions did you go to, Brenda?
Well, I did a 360 math with Ed Campos, and that was amazing. It was so fun because played a lot of music in the session. And so it was a rocking party even before the 30-minute after party. It was rocking the whole time. And he played interesting music to coincide with what he wanted you to do, whether it was get up or move around or have a seat. And he just had these great musical interludes to tell you like it was a trigger. Oh, you knew if this song came on, you were supposed to move around the classroom. If this song came on, you knew you're supposed to sit down and go back to your seat. And so it was amazing. And then also the way he moved people around to different, he had like little mini whiteboards around the classroom, and he purposely moved us all around a lot. So we were not with the same group of people all the time. And the way we worked together and moved around, it was amazing. And so we're definitely going to try to get him on our podcast and have him talk about everything that he did, because it was totally enjoyable. It was the best hour that I spent in a classroom in a really long time.
That's cool.
It was very cool.
And then you saw the social studies panel, which was just a 30-minute panel?
Yes. And we did like I said, we did have discussions, but I guess none of us realized that that's all it was. I mean, we could have looked at the sched, but I just, in my mind, and I think in other people's too, we just thought it was the session and the after party where it was just the panel and that's it. So, but it was well worth it. They covered so much during that 30-minute session. It was unbelievable. So we definitely want to talk to them further. And then I went to another one with on Pear Deck, and we're definitely going to be having Krista Morales with us on an upcoming podcast. And she was amazing. She's got such great energy, and she works with these high schooler students and middle schoolers, and just, she gets it. She totally gets how they think, how they move, what clicks in their head, and how she can relate to them. It's pretty amazing. And she understands when it's better to be anonymous and when it's better to have your opinion known. Mm-hmm. And it was really amazing to see that. It was just a lot of fun.
Cool.
How about you, Shannon? What did you attend?
Well, I'm kind of sad I didn't go to the sessions you went to, but I did go to some pretty great sessions as well. I started off with a featured speaker. I did see two featured speakers while we were there, which was a different kind of a session. It was a sit and get type of a session. It was sort of interactive, but for the most part, they were giving us a lot of information. And so the first one was with Christina Ishmael, a good friend of ours, a friend of the podcast. And she was doing a session on rethinking instructional materials. As you know from our previous episode with Christina, I consider her the queen of OER and open educational resources. And so she was talking a little more on social justice and just rethinking, are the instructional materials that we're using reflective of our demographic of students? And if not, how do we make that happen? In other words, are you using the names that are reflective of your students in some of the worksheet or materials or questions that you might have on your teaching materials, is what I'm trying to say. Is that reflective of your students' names or ethnicity or demographics or culture? Because one of the things she pointed out, which some people may or may not know, is that textbooks are made really for California, New York, Florida, and Texas. And that's who they gear the textbooks for. So if you don't have the same demographics as those four states, you might be getting materials that aren't sensitive to the needs of your students. And so she was really talking about being reflective. One of the coolest things was, are you a mirror or are you a window? And is your classroom a mirror or a window to them? And so that's kind of, that was that session. It was very fascinating. She had a lot of data to support what she was working on over there at New America. The next session I went to, because I love EduProtocols, and as far as I know, still maybe the only badge holder, which I have right here as I'm a certified instructional EduProtocol Field Guide badge holder. I went to John Crippo's session on Q plus craft plus Edu protocols. It was a design session. And it was really, I think, meant to be a 30-minute builder fair with a 30-minute after party, but in true John Crippo fashion, we just went all in and basically he engaged us for almost the entire time. It was just so fascinating on why you would want to be using Edu protocols and the data and kind of around those sessions. And so I loved it. He kept us engaged. We didn't even really miss not having the extra 30 minutes because we were just so engaged with him. But he did actually another session later on, I believe that day. So that had the 30-minute time slot in it. The other featured speaker session I went to was with Jonathan Nalder, and he was from Australia. So he was super cute because the first thing he said was, "I'm from the future." And like legitimately he is, because he came from Australia. So it's already tomorrow over there. And he did quite a few sessions, actually. The one I was able to attend was Ready for Class and what can future ready lessons look like. And he had this really cool lesson that we participated in groups, thinking about like if we were a group of students and we had to populate Mars, and kind of some of the activities that we would go through, team building activities, design thinking activities. There was virtual reality and augmented reality activities that we did. We put on headsets and moon rover. We took pictures as if we were in the suit. We got to find out what gravity was on the moon. Just all these different kinds of activities. That was a wonderful, for being a featured speaker session. We were very engaged, I would say. There's lots of pictures on Twitter that I posted on Twitter of that session. It was really, really fun. And he has a whole series of workshops that you can do with the kids around pollinating Mars and
Wow.
thinking about these design thinking challenges. What would things be made out of, and how would we grow our food, and just all kinds of fun and interesting things and activities. So that was a fun one.
I love that. It sounds different.
It was very different. The fact, first of all, that he's from Australia was really fun because just listening to him talk is always just captivating. Right. But I mean, we participated. It was really a full house, and we all participated. We pretty much got to do all kinds of. There were like these 3D printed tools, and we had to figure out what these tools were because they were actual tools that were 3D printed, I think, by students that got to go on a space station. And what did they do, and what were their purposes? They were very multi-tools, and I don't know, it was just really different, and something that I will definitely bring back to my team, and have already brought back to my team to look into, to see if we could incorporate some of these lessons and activities into the work we do with our teachers so that they could then pass it on to their students. So it was really fun. I went to a blending seamlessly with screencasting and seesaw session. That was with Jennifer Anderson and Kevin Fairchild. That was, again, a 30-minute session with an after party, but it was unfortunately broken up with lunch. So it was like the 30-minute session, then lunch, then the after party. So I don't know how many people went to the after party. Sorry, guys. But the session was really good. They talked about how they are tech TOSAs in their district and how they use different screencasting tools with Seesaw as a portfolio type of a space to get the students to post videos and then share them, and as an alternative to YouTube if your district blocks YouTube. So pretty cool. I didn't know that. So definitely something I'll be taking back and using with our teachers. And then the last one I went to was Sparks, SP, and then ARCS for student motivation. And ARCS is again a framework of making sure you're meeting the needs of all your students and motivating them. And so Steve McGriff was the leader of that session. And it was really interesting. It was a framework that I had never really seen before. And I was excited and intrigued. Steve McGriff also contributes to many Edu protocols. So I knew his name from Edu protocols, and I was excited to meet with him and see what Sparks was all about. And it was a really interesting session about how to just kind of make sure that we're hitting all of these pieces to help get students engaged in their learning. And of course, meeting the needs of all students as well. So it was good. I hit a lot of sessions, and some with people I knew, some with new people, but all good takeaways. We did have a teacher from a couple of teachers, actually, I think from some of our local San Diego schools that we're working with attend, and went to totally different sessions because I never even saw them, but they were tweeting. And I was like, okay, great. A real divide and conquer type of opportunity. So it was really fun with 400 people.
I know. 400 people you don't think is that many, but then you realize that there's people that you never saw or you're hoping to catch up with and you didn't get to.
That Sage Creek High School is a beautiful high school, but there were a lot of stairs and a lot of buildings.
I definitely got my steps in.
It did too. It was very spread out.
But my only complaint, which maybe attributed to so many of my steps, was I wanted to rename their numbering from, they had buildings 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000. And I wanted to switch the 1,000 and the 3,000 because I kept getting them confused and I end up going the wrong way. And then I have to turn around and go back to 2 more buildings past. And it was...
Yes. When you entered campus, you were at the 3,000 building.
Right.
And then you went... The further away you got from the entrance, you were going towards the 1,000. And that was very confusing. I agree with you. I don't know who planned that, but
that's my only recommendation. Or renumber your buildings.
Yeah, Sage Creek High School, if you're listening. So those were great. Those were great sessions. We had a great time. We met a lot of great people.
We did look in at the classroom makeovers.
We did.
And I think they said that they not necessarily would make over an entire classroom like that. Like some of them, they put several different things in the same classroom just so they could show or highlight chairs or desks or things that go on the wall. And they said that not necessarily they would put them all in one room like they were, but they just wanted to highlight everything in one room.
To see.
Right.
Thank you for going to those. I know we do have photos. We'll put them up on our website with this episode. I took photos. You took photos. So we'll put those up. I only got to see one classroom, but you got to see both of them. And yes. Rebecca Hare was doing one of the classrooms, Makeovers, and she has a book out that we'll also link to about classroom space and how to think about space in your classroom. And I think that was kind of a session that she was doing in one of those classrooms, in the classroom she was in, right?
Right, exactly. And there were some other sessions that I also went to, but I mean, I didn't necessarily stay for every one. Like I wanted to pop into as many as possible, but definitely another one that I did attend that was amazing was that Game Boy Drew. He did a design thinking one that was amazing, and we're definitely going to have him.
I love Game Boy Drew.
Oh my gosh.
He's a friend definitely of the podcast, and at QLA, the Culapalooza, I went to his session as well, and I think he's fantastic. I can't wait for him to agree to be on the show. I don't know if we've asked him yet, but we're just assuming he's coming on.
Yes.
Because we know him. And
that's right.
Super fun. He's got a lot of great ideas. He's made an incredible game that he's been using with his students that he has had printed onto cards. Just an amazing, I think he was one of the Q new up and coming teachers of the year, right, and like that. So he's just a fun guy.
Absolutely. It was a fun event.
It was a good run.
It was. It was fun.
Yeah, we want to just let you know of some other summer events that Q has coming up. In June, there is, if you're in California, June 17th is Rockstar Big Bear. And you can register for any of these, with the exception of ISTE. You register for ISTE on the ISTE website. But all the rest of these you can look for under q.org/events. So June 17th, Rockstar Big Bear. June 23rd through 26th is ISTE in Philadelphia.
And unfortunately, we will not be attending that one.
Due to pre-reserved travel plans this summer. August 6th is Rockstar in Oxnard. They call it #Roxnard, which is super fun. Great name. And then there's a couple other events in September.
Yeah, the MBQ, the Digital Citizenship Summit, Monterey County.
So that's Monterey Bay Q on September 21st, right?
Right. And also on the 21st of September is the East Bay Q's Cool Tools for Learning 2019.
That's a fun one. Some of my colleagues out of Oakland are going to be presenting at that one. So
fun.
You're up in the NorCal area in September on the 21st. Head over to that one.
And then one we may have to hit up because we haven't been to Vegas in a while is September 28th is the Silver State Technology Conference, Q Nevada in Las Vegas. So yeah, we may have to do that one.
Yeah, Nevada is also one of our affiliates, Q affiliates. So Californians can go support that event as well. So I would say, yeah, definitely have to check that one out.
Baby needs new shoes.
That's right. That's right. So we're excited. Definitely keep in touch with your local Q affiliate if you're in California or Nevada to see what it's coming up. And if you're not in California or Nevada, check your local district or your Department of Education. I'm sure they've got some fun events that'll be happening for you.
Right. And at this time, we have finished or coming to near an end of our unbelievable run with Q as we are the official Q podcasters for the last 6 months. And it's been an incredible ride. And we just want to say thank you to Q. And, I think it's definitely brought us some great introductions to people, and we've gotten so many contacts, and we've had such a great experience. So we just wanted to thank Q, thank John Carippo, Kate Tolnai, Jason Seliskar, and our heartfelt thanks. And if any of you are podcasters, bloggers, Twitter, or social media, if you have a calling to either of those, Q has They contract. I think it's just a contracted opportunity for social media folks who enjoy spreading the word about Q like we do, and just really just have opportunities to meet and go to these different events and to be a part of a pretty elite group of social media champs. We were very honored to be inducted into this group, and will forever be part of the social media champ network. And we came behind some people who were incredible, and so we really appreciate our forefathers, I guess.
Literally, the guys that came before us, and we will do what they did for us, is be there for the next round of podcasters as they go, well, how do we do this again, and what do we do, and ask questions, because we were very appreciative to those that went before us. It was a great opportunity. Hopefully we'll be able to apply again another year, but this has been a great 6 months of being powered by Q. Our logo has always been powered by Q for the last 6 months. So we're really appreciative to those guys that gave us that opportunity and really planted some seeds in our head for some other things.
Right.
Pushing us to think beyond just what we're doing here and how else we might be able to impact you guys as teachers and listeners to our podcast. So thank you so much to Q for that opportunity.
It's been incredible. And so I think if you are interested, they are taking applications right now. And so if you're interested, keep an eye on their website for the social media champs.
Thank you to everyone listening. And we've had a good time.
Yeah. And with John Carippo is actually the one that has suggested that we find out more information about a topic called
#Shadow a Student.
And so we would like to highlight Shadow a Student now. It's an interesting opportunity. I think Shannon had heard of it before, but I had never heard of it. And it is very much a social, emotional related to the students and to the administration. And I think we would like to highlight them during this podcast, because I think it's definitely something that is much needed today in us understanding each other and having the students understand the administrators and having the administrators understand the students.
Absolutely. It's definitely an exercise that came out of the Stanford D.school, and we'll let Devon Young explain it more with our interview with her. But I had heard about it in Design Thinking for the School Administrator book, and it really encourages administrators to shadow a student and do everything they do from literally the time they leave their house in the morning to the time they get home at night. And it is an exercise in empathy, and you cannot serve someone until you can be empathetic to them. And you may have populations at your school that you need to build empathy with or understand more and on a deeper level. And this gives you, it started with administrators and quickly became a teacher. Teachers were doing it too. Shadow a Student Week, it does happen typically in the fall, and we will be tweeting it out as well as we get closer to fall. But we're really excited to have had the opportunity to interview her and kind of hear about how this came about and why it is so important that we do it. So
without further ado, our interview with Devon Young.
All right. Today on the My Tech Tool Belt podcast, we are so excited to have Devon Young, the K12 Lab Program Manager and Learning Experience Designer at the Stanford D.school. Welcome, Devon.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So we wanted to talk to you about the Shadow a Student program that you guys started out of the Stanford D.school and hear a little bit about it and how we can call our teachers to action when the time comes. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, you and kind of your background and how you came to this awesome place with the D.school at Stanford, which is a cool place.
Yeah, so my background, it was kind of a winding journey to the Shadow a Student Challenge, but started my career as an AmeriCorps VISTA, actually. So I was working at a couple different nonprofits in San Francisco on alleviating poverty and focusing on young people, specifically middle school students, as an age that we could really introduce educational programs and ideas that would then help kind of give them more of an ability to graduate from high school and be prepared for the real world. So through that kind of VISTA-ship, I started to realize that my work in education was really not so much about me working directly with students, but perhaps working more with educators and school leaders who were able to make larger changes in their schools and in the educational system. And so from there, I worked at a nonprofit called Spark, which is a national nonprofit based in San Francisco that matches middle school students from low-income communities with workplace-based mentors. And they would have basically apprenticeships for 8 weeks, where they would be doing a 21st century skills class in their public schools that they attend, and then would be going off and doing these workplace, on the ground, working with adults and really understanding what it's like to be an adult and to be working in the workplace. From that experience, I got really excited about the idea of not being an external organization that's working with schools and coming in and, delivering the content and setting up these apprenticeships and setting up these programs for students, but more on working directly with, like I said, with the schools, with the students, or with the teachers, with the school leaders who would be kind of driving that change. So I was reached out to by a former colleague who had recently started working at the D.school. Basically she said, "Do you know what design thinking is?" And I was like, "I have no idea." And she's like, "Great, you should come in for an interview." So I was able to go in and meet a few people who were, basically launching this, K12 Lab Network, and got to be brought in to work on our fellowship program at the D.school and then in our K12 Lab. And I've been there working in the lab now for about 4 years, where our focus is really around bringing design thinking and innovative teaching and learning practices to K12 education by working with schools, organizations, and districts, and helping them kind of bring the kind of creative confidence to their students. So the Shadow a Student Challenge was one of the first large projects that I was able to work on during my time as the program manager in the K12 lab. So it's just really exciting to see it grow the way that it has, and to be able to kind of talk with you two about this work. Yeah,
it's super cool. So I had come across the Shadow a Student opportunity in the Design Thinking for School Leaders book that I was working with, and it recommends that every administrator shadow a student, and it actually references a lot of the information from the Stanford D.school. And so I was really excited to be connected with you through our mutual friend, John Crippo, who I think just knows everybody and anybody in the field of innovative education. Tell us a little bit about this. I think it's really cool. So it started at the Stanford D.school, but it started why? What was the thing that kicked it off?
One of the programs, one of our large programs that we have in the lab is called School Retool, which is a fellowship for school leaders where they have a 4-month fellowship, essentially going deep into design thinking and kind of deeper learning competencies to work towards an aspiration that they've set for their school. So this program was existing and was happening. And one of the first things that we asked all of our principal fellows to do was to shadow a student and to use that to drive the fellowship kind of moving forward. From that experience, we realized how, shadowing is not something that we invented, right? We know that. But it's something that's really, really transformative when you do it and you do it well. And so our School Retool team was asked to go to the White House in 2015, so November 2015, for the Next Generation High School Summit. And during that summit, they asked everyone that was coming to essentially commit to getting 1,000 school leaders doing something to drive change in their schools. And, we had a lot of different ideas about what that could actually be. Like how could we engage 1,000 school leaders to do something? And the idea came about, what if we get 1,000 school leaders to shadow a student for one day? And that's 1,000 school leaders across all 50 states to shadow a student. So that was how the idea was born. So we worked with IDEA, which is a design consultancy firm based here in the Bay Area. That our co-founder, David Kelly, who co-founded the D.school, also is the founder of IDEA as well. And so we work closely with them on really thinking about what could this program actually look like, and how could we take this very kind of not simple idea, but an idea that's easy to understand and really build it out into a great professional development experience for school leaders. So the first year that we launched, we were aiming for 50 states and 1,000 school leaders to sign on to basically commit to shadowing a student for a full day, from bus stop to bus stop, to really deeply understand what their school is like and what students experience as they walk through your school every day. The first year we did it, we got over 1,600 people to sign up across all 50 states and over 52 countries, which was pretty wild. And there was a huge rush of excitement around it. People were sharing on Twitter, on all over social media. People were writing blogs about their experiences and finding connections that we did not make these connections, but people were connecting themselves with the other people who had done the shadow, which just really showed us this is something that's really, really special. So in 2016 it launched. And then since then we've continued building the program and running it every year. So it's an annual campaign right now. We have made a few changes since the first year. And one of the large ones was that now it's no longer only for school leaders. We were receiving a lot of feedback from our first year that, these materials, all these resources that you provide are all for school leaders, for principals, assistant principals. I'm a classroom teacher. I'm a guidance counselor. I work in a school support staff in some capacity, and I want to do this. Is this for me? And so we realized oh my gosh, yes, this is for everyone. Anyone that would really like to go deep and really understand student or school through a student's eyes can take this challenge. So since then, we've shifted all of our resources, all of our kind of tools and communication to really open it up to anyone. And since 2016, we've had over 6,000 people sign on to take this challenge across the world. So it's become a real movement around, getting deep empathy for students. And why I think it's really resonating with people is because it's not a huge thing to have to do in terms of setting up. You're shadowing one student. So you have to select your student, figure out what is the thing I'm trying to learn about my school, or what is the purpose of me doing this shadow. And then once you go through the shadow day with your student, you have all of these different reflections and things that kind of happen while you're in the zone as a student. So we have resources and tools that help you kind of take those insights and take those observations that you gain from your shadow day and actually make some insight-driven action at your school based on what you learned. So I think the biggest reason why I think it's grown so much is because, like I said earlier, we didn't invent shadowing, but what we've done is we've created resources, a calendar, time, and a community of support around this kind of professional development experience, which has allowed people to really take it and make it their own. So it's just been a really amazing thing to see in the world.
I think that's awesome. I'm wondering, so how do these schools, first, how do they even hear about this program?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. We do, especially in the beginning of the campaign, we did a lot of targeted outreach where we would reach out to different districts or specific schools or school leaders or teachers that we thought had really interesting stories that we would find maybe some writing from them, or maybe they're in a rural area in the United States and we were really interested about like what that would look like there to shadow. So in the beginning, it was a lot of like on the ground, like calling people, cold calling people, emailing people, like sending letters to people. It was really kind of a grassroots campaign for the first like year and a half. But since then, it's been a lot of word of mouth from other people. So people know what's happening every year. So we usually get emails or, people asking, when is this going to happen again? I want to engage my school staff to do this. So, and when the shadow is happening, we see a lot of people challenging each other to shadow, like on social media, or even just people who would kind of challenge people within their schools to try this challenge as well. A great thing that's been happening this last year or so has been that we found that maybe one person would sign up on our website for shadow, but then we'd come to find out that 25 people from their district actually took the shadow challenge with them. And so it's become something where if one person does the shadow challenge, really sees the value in it and sees how close this does bring you to students and to the student experience, then they're the best advocates for our program. So lucky for us, we have really engaged, excited, educators who are taking this challenge every year and really promoting it for us, which is great because that's what we want, right? We don't want it to be something that we're having to ask people to do. We want people to be taking this challenge and doing this work because they see the value in it year after year after year, and how much they're able to learn about their students and how much they're able to make changes at their schools based on what their students tell them or what they see. Yeah, now it's a lot of word of mouth, and getting to do a podcast also really helps. So thanks again, guys, for having us on.
Absolutely. Well, can you give us like a background, or like what does the day involve? How does the day start and end for these either administrators or teachers?
Yeah, let me back up a little bit, actually, even before that. After signing up, you receive basically a packet of information, which is a shadow toolkit, where we have laid out all of the steps we would recommend that you do in order to prepare for shadowing, during the actual shadowing, what you can do and what kind of observations you can make, how you can reflect on your shadow day, and then how you can take action. And so right when you sign up, you receive all of that information. Also in that email is basically kind of like a preparation checklist. So things that we suggest that you do. One of the first things that we ask people to do is to set a learning goal for yourself. Why are you actually doing this shadow? What are you trying to learn? So people have, all sorts of different learning goals that they have. I want to understand the English language learner experience at my school. I want to really, deeply understand how if students have meaningful relationships with adults. That's what I'm looking for. I want to maybe not shadow a student who's really high achieving or a student who's maybe like lower achieving, but maybe a student who kind of falls through the cracks and through the day. That's the student who's kind of invisible, that's unseen. So once you've set that learning goal from yourself, then you basically, there's a couple of different exercises to help you understand who you can ask, how to ask that student. So you select your student, you get that student's permission and approval for you to do this, because it's a big ask for the student too, right?
Right.
And then you set the day for your shadow. We have pre-made communications that you send out to your staff and to your colleagues, to your community, and then you get ready to shadow. So we ask that you basically wear what the student's going to wear. So like leave your briefcase, leave your blazer, leave your button-down shirt, pull out your backpack, wear a pair of sneakers, pack a lunch if that's what your student's going to have, and leave your computer at home, right? Bring what you need for that day. So even before you even enter the school day, or even, meet with your student the first day, get yourself in the shoes of a student. So once they've met their students, they then basically spend the entire day with that student. We really push on it being an observational experience, not an evaluative experience, right? So the things that you're looking for are not how are the teachers teaching, or what is the discipline looking like in this classroom, or I don't know, any of those things that teachers, right, or educators kind of would think about, and really just look and just really try and immerse yourself into the life of the student. So the student's taking a test, you're taking that test. If you have to go to a PE class, hope you packed your bag with PE clothes, because you should take that too. If your student has after school activities, we really encourage you to stay after school with that student, so that you can, throughout the full day, really understand what it's like to be a student. After that, after you've shadowed your student for that day and you've thanked them and hopefully done some sort of kind of follow-up interview with them, then you move into reflecting. So also in the workbook that you receive, there's a bunch of different reflection exercises which help you take kind of the observations that you see into some insights or kind of some opportunities that you might be able to think about as you think about what you want to do with this information. So from there, we move into acting. So acting, I think, is the hardest part for people to really grasp and thinking about. When you're going through the day as a student, you're seeing so much and you're experiencing so much and you're hearing so much from the students, right? So it can be really hard to kind of narrow in and say, what is the thing I actually want to focus on, or what's the thing that I want to change? And so what we're asking people to do is to try a couple of hacks or experiments, like small, scrappy experiments that can be really, really quick and easy to do, that you can do in maybe a week. That doesn't require a ton of planning, but can really show you kind of some results, or basically help you understand if you're on the right path with this idea. After that kind of closes out the Shadow Challenge campaign with the hopes that this will be something that you build into your regular PD and try again. So that's kind of the journey of a shadower.
Okay. And are the shadowers also participating in the homework?
Oh yeah, they're participating in they should be. The homework,
good,
they
good.
should taking the test, everything. They have to eat lunch with the student. That's actually been the most interesting thing, Brenda, is kind of the initial reactions that we get from people, or like what people are sharing as they're going through Shadow. At first, it sounds kind of superficial, right? But some people say, like, one of the biggest things that we hear from people after shadowing is, so I was so hungry all day. Or, or I was really exhausted. Like, I didn't move for 8 hours and I'm exhausted.
Right.
Like little things like that you kind of like, you chuckle at and you're like, huh. But then when you actually go deeper into it, you're like, huh, but what does this make you think about? Like, what does this actually make you understand about your school? And like, for example, for the, I was so hungry. So this past year, there was a high school principal who shadowed a 10th grade male student at his school. And he said that. He's like, I was starving the whole day because he was eating what the student was eating. And what he realized was this 10th grade boy was eating, he was on the free and reduced price lunch program at school. So he was eating breakfast and lunch at the school, and then he would go home for dinner. And his breakfast and his lunch that the principal ate with him was just not enough to take him through the day. He was like, I don't know, if I can't make it through the day,
right,
how are we expecting this, this growing boy to be able to really be present and be all in and kind of be the student that we expect him to be in class, is when you're hungry. And so from that, like a really quick hack he did, an experiment that he did, was he basically started putting like healthy snack baskets in most of the classrooms. So they would just, from the kitchen, from the cafeteria, they would pull, like, and some parents would donate to it, fruit and, granola bars, nuts, things like that, healthy snacks that would just be in classes. So that way it would hopefully help to alleviate that hunger. And in the meantime, right, when you can't really do much in the middle of the school year to change, the lunch program or anything like that, that's a quick hack that he wouldn't have been able to see that if he had not actually done the shadow. If he had just done a half day, observation with a student, he wouldn't have been able to feel the hunger or the tiredness or seen what that actually results in. So it's like that type of student lens that you can't replicate unless you go through the experience,
Right. That empathetic.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's so important, and I feel like it probably, and just kind of going through some of the tweets and some of the feedback that you guys get, is putting healthy snacks in or realizing that your kids might be hungry might have a direct impact on your test scores or homework getting turned in, or student learning in general. Let's just forget all of the testing and nonsense of that, but just student learning in general. Like you said, they can't be all in if they're hungry, and you don't know that because they're not going to tell you that, right? That's not information that the kids are going to offer willingly. So
and so many teachers will say, "Oh, no eating or drinking in the classroom."
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
right. So I just think I think that this opportunity and these experiences are so critical and so valuable that I'm so appreciative of them. I expressed to you earlier, I'm going to do a better job of working with our administrators and having these opportunities and taking the time to do this, because it's such a great experience. Okay, so they sign up on the website. You're going to give us all that information. We'll put it on our website and in our show notes. But what's the cost? I mean, the teachers don't have any money, Devon. Like we everything comes out of our pockets already. Is there a cost to do this program with you?
That is such a great question. So there is no cost to do this program. It is completely free. All of our resources, all of our materials are on the website. We want people to do this. So there's no cost. All that it is time, right? It's time that it takes for you. You have to really dedicate time to doing this right. And I think when you kind of think about like the time commitment, like this means you have to really set aside a full day, which is hard to do. So if you're going to do this, plan ahead, plan like 2 months ahead, and really set aside that day, get a sub, get some sort of coverage, whatever you need. But other than kind of the time and that type of energy that it takes, it's completely free. It's meant to be accessible to anyone.
And then do you get feedback from the administrations or whoever's doing the shadowing?
Yeah, we do a pretty extensive kind of synthesis session following each shadow campaign. So we generally tend to have those for about 2 weeks a year, where those are the 2 weeks that we ask most people to sign up to shadow their student during those 2 weeks. So following that time, and then we have a small team at Stanford. We reach out, do interviews with people, try and collect all of the media that's been happening, all of the blogs that have been written by educators, tracking on all the social media, and try and pull out like, what are the themes that are emerging from these? What are we seeing? What are people telling us? What are people learning about? And then as we keep moving things forward, how can we improve this next year? So this past year, actually, we had some really great student researchers from the Minerva School, which is a higher ed institution here in San Francisco. And they were our fellows for Shadow a Student. And they actually went and did a shadow. So that was part of their empathy work for their synthesis, was they went to a local school and they each shadowed a student to really understand what this program actually feels like. So we do a really extensive kind of follow-up empathy work after that. One of the best parts about doing that is really hearing like deeper insights from people and kind of getting a chance to ask more questions, right? So like with that principle I was talking about earlier, you know, when you say like, oh, I was really hungry all day, then the follow-up can be, well, what did that make you think about, right? Or why do you think that, like, how do you think that impacts your student every day? And so just that, it's a really helpful exercise. And that's why we really ask people, if you're going to shadow, try and get like at least one other colleague to do it with you, because just the process of being able to kind of, just kind of talk it out afterwards can be really revealing and kind of can really lead you to some deeper insights that you might not have seen, previously.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that the students volunteer to be shadowed. And so do they also have a reflection, or do they participate in any way?
Yeah, great question. So the students are volunteers in that we basically really try and make it clear that like this is not something that you want to kind of force onto a student. You want to ask them and invite and ask for their invitation into their lives for a day, because it's a pretty invasive experience for students. So basically, the student perspective on that is really about sharing their life, sharing their experience with their shadow. But following that, we asked the shadowers to really do a follow-up reflection kind of interview with the student to say, like, what did you notice? What did you feel when I was shadowing you? Like, what were some moments that really stood out that you were proud that I saw? Or what were you not so proud to see? What do you think I missed? And kind of doing that back and forth with the student. And that's actually led to some really interesting kind of meaningful relationships between the shadow and, the shadowing adult and the student, where there's one shadower was sharing with us that now they do kind of a reciprocal shadow as well, where the student shadows the school leader every year as well. So like that's been something that's been, an interesting thing to be added. But in terms of like a formalized shadow a student challenge experience for the students, that's been something that we have not dug into yet. But I really like that idea, Brenda.
I've got a lot of ideas.
I know, we should talk.
Brenda does have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, geez, Brenda. Bring you on next year.
I'll never retire because Brenda will just be like, now we're doing this.
That's great.
So I had a question. You said this typically happens between like kind of nationally a set of weeks every year.
Yes.
And so we'd like to like gear up for that. And so how do we not miss that? Like what do our listeners need to do? Like if this is something they're interested in, or maybe they just want to follow it on Twitter and see what happens, or how do we know when this is going to happen?
Great. So we will be releasing our fall shadow dates very soon. And the best way to kind of receive that information would be to follow us on social media. So at K12 Lab is the K12 Lab Twitter account, where we will release the new shadow dates. You're also welcome to go onto the Shadow a Student website, which is just www.shadowastudent.org, and sign up there, because that will be also where we send out all of the new information, the new content, the new curriculum, and the new dates. And then also, just if you're on social media, just look on Twitter and just check out the hashtag Shadow a Student, because people are still shadowing now, and it's just a really interesting kind of thing to see what people are experiencing, what they're sharing from their current shadows. So I would say through social media, through our website, and we would also be sharing this information with you. So if you follow Brenda and Shannon, then you will have that information.
Absolutely.
We'll be tweeting and following, and in the future we're going to have an opportunity, I think, to interview some of your people who have shadowed, yes. and we'll air that episode closer to the dates as you release them. So you'll get to hear more about folks that have done this and had this experience. I'm super excited. I'm just going to tell you right now, I am so excited to kind of dig a little deeper and go deeper with my leaders that I have the just honor to work with this year. I have quite a few principals that we'll be bringing together, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you and doing this, and hopefully just maybe even sharing, my story, my experience of leading them through this. I'd love to shadow a student. Maybe I'll get out and do it one day.
I think maybe we should. You know what? I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to challenge all of us to shadow a student this next school year. We should all shadow a student.
It's a great idea.
We will.
Did you have like a story that you would want to share with us of an experience that that someone has had doing the shadow a student?
We have so many stories, and I don't want to share all of the amazing stories. I would rather you be able to go read their blogs or listen to their voices as they're sharing this. But I will share, I can share one story that really, really just kind of stood out. This was from about 2 years ago. We had a school leader in Texas, at an elementary school in Texas, who signed up to shadow a student. She had never heard of the challenge before, and just kind of signed up on the whim, and decided that she wanted to shadow a third grade student. So she shadowed a little girl all day. And one of the main reasons for her doing that shadow was that she had been receiving some feedback from her staff. So from the teachers and the other kind of school support staff at her school, that she wasn't as accessible. In the last 2 years, she had been getting this kind of regular feedback that she wasn't as accessible as she previously was. And this was because, right, as a principal, she found herself kind of buried in bureaucracy and doing a lot of, in the office and dealing with all of the paper, the papers, and talking to the parents and the board and all of that stuff. And so the assistant principal was really kind of in this, going into the school and really visible among the staff and the students. So during her shadow day with the third grade student, as she was kind of going through her day, she was just realizing how much more she was seeing. So, right, she was, talking and communicating with staff and with different students that she hadn't in a long time. She was able to see the parent pickup, process in a way that she hadn't in a while, and just saw all of these kind of very, very day-to-day things that happen that she was missing because she was, really, really underwater with a lot of her, principal work. And so after shadow, she was like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this? Because I can't do this shadow every week. I have to get all of my work done. What can I do? And so she tried a hack, which was move your desk for a day. And so the next week, she basically found a desk. Actually, I think it might have been her desk. And she basically brought it out into the hallway outside of the principal's office for a full day. She sat out there and she had her phone out there. She had, a sign that said the principal is in. There's a great photo that she posted on Twitter of that. And basically she just worked all day out in the hallway. And it was an amazing experience for her, where she was, people were coming up, students were talking to her. She was having these conversations and getting to see her school in a new way again. And so she started doing it monthly. And then she started doing it twice a month. And then she introduced a kind of a suggestion box where students were able to kind of put little slips of paper with ideas that they had for ways to make school better, that she then started to incorporate into her principal letter to her school community. And so it just kind of kept kind of snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. And what I really loved about that experience and that story was she had this feeling. she did the, she heard this feedback. She had a feeling, she did shadow. And then rather than being like, okay, well, that was great, I guess I'll do it again next year, she said, no, like, this is something that I need to figure out how to keep, bring more of this into my work. And she did a small experiment that could have failed, right? It could have been a total bust, and it wasn't, and it was great. And so she started to think about more and more ways to improve that. And so it kind of was like a mindset shift for her. She and what she had said basically after this was like, it helped me really realize how I don't need to approach problems in the same way. And rather than seeing a problem and thinking of the easiest answer or like the most obvious answer, like what might it look like if I do a little bit more kind of empathy work, or I do a little bit more kind of on the ground kind of experimenting with this before we solve the problem, because we might not be actually solving the right problem. So I love that story because that was just a real kind of mindset shift that happened for her through shadow. And she is still continuing to shadow and to pull so many people in from her community into doing this program with her, and she's been like a huge advocate for this campaign, which has been amazing. So that's one story, but there are so many more. And I'm not even, you should hear her tell the story. So I will say,
that's an awesome story.
I love that. And I'll also say on the website too, there's, we have tons of stories listed on there. There's a great PBS NewsHour video. We were so lucky to be featured in that back in 2016. And that's a great kind of interview with a principal who went through shadow. So you can hear it in her words. So lots of opportunities to kind of hear from actual shadowers and what the experience was from them.
I'm accepting your challenge too. I'm going to shadow a student.
All right.
I'm going to do it.
What do you think, Brenda? We have you too, Brenda?
I just need to get fingerprinted.
No, I think it's fantastic. Well, Brenda might have a question for you about like books that you would recommend.
Yes. I generally like to ask if there's any books that you would recommend to our listeners that either have made an impact on you either professionally or personally.
Yeah. One book that has been really transformative to me personally is Creative Confidence, which is a book by David Kelly and Tom Kelly that I read when I really started understanding and learning design thinking. And I think that book is just a really great explanation of what design thinking is, how it looks in the world, and how it can look in your own personal or professional lives. So that to me was just like a hugely helpful book. And as I started my design thinking journey, another book that's really great that we actually recommend for all of our school retool fellows is Little Bets by Peter Sims. So it's Little Bets, How Breakthrough Ideas Emerge from Small Discoveries. And it's essentially, it's a book that's basically around the idea of trying hacks and trying experiments and starting small before going really large. And again, it's just a book that is really helpful to think about as you look at education and you think about problems in education and how insurmountable and huge they can be. Sometimes it's really comforting to be like, okay, let's break it down into smaller, digestible chunks and try and, kind of start small rather than going big. So I would say those two off the top of my head, but I want to think more on that and then maybe send you some more to share too.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. We Shannon and I both get a ton of great recommendations from people. It's awesome. That's why we do it.
I would also love your recommendations too, because I'm looking for some new books. So.
You'll have
to
listen.
Check out our website.
Yep.
Every single episode has people's books on it. Super, super exciting. Just a fascinating program. I'm super excited to be a part of it, and we'll blog and share with you guys. And Brenda and I'll circle back with you after we've done our shadowing.
And it's open for all, like PE teachers, language teachers, librarians, everybody.
Yep. Anyone that works in any capacity in schools are welcome to do that. We have board members who shadow. We have people, so anyone, cafeteria staff. Janitorial, anyone. So I would say, check it. Yeah. Check out the site, check out all of the different kind of, I don't want to say testimonials, but check out all of the kind of what people are sharing about their experience. But it is a really inclusive experience in that anyone can do it, anyone. And that's the whole point, right?
That's awesome.
And I think you said it. It's an empathy experience. Your lens could be different every single time you do it. You could have your staff do it at various times throughout the year, all looking for from a different lens to share back. And I think the most important thing is that this experience is for direct benefit of a student's experience in their classroom. Exactly. And how it's our responsibility, it's our ethical duty to make this experience the best we possibly can. And so this is just an amazing opportunity, and the resources that you guys provide to kind of walk us as teachers and administrators kind of through this process, I think is the key to the whole experience. Because I shared with you before, I've kind of asked some of my administrators to do this, and I don't think anybody ever did it. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a tweet or an email, but I don't think that anybody that I've asked to do it has actually done it. And so I think once I introduce the resources and we do this together, like I will participate as well, it'll be a different outcome. And I'm super excited about it. I'm a big fan. Hashtag fan. You're going to get a fan, and we'll hopefully send you a fan, or I'll bring you one when I come to visit.
Exactly.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful episode. We sincerely appreciate your time and your talent and all the effort that you're doing there at the Stanford D.School. So thank you for your time today. And
we're going to come visit you.
Yes,
yeah.
Come visit me, please.
You already extended the invitation, and I'm already up there every month anyway. So
I know, yeah.
This is awesome. This is so awesome. I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Devon, for your time today. And Brenda, do you have anything to close?
No, just appreciate your time and can't wait to get the word out. And if any of our listeners have participated in this, or let us know.
Great.
We would love to hear your experiences.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for kind of shining a light on this program and just, really, really helping people in education really start to think about problems through the student lens, and think about school through the student lens. I just really appreciate you guys giving us this platform to kind of share it with your community. So thank you, and hope to see you guys at the bus stop this year when we shadow a student.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Devon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
And we're out. Thanks for listening to the MyTech Toolbelt podcast. If you have enjoyed listening, please rate us on Apple Podcasts or send us some feedback on our website, mytechtoolbelt.com. We would love to hear from you. This will help us deliver the content that you want to hear. Thanks, and we're out.